Okay, so 5.5 is solving rational equations, and we're going to combine this with 5.3, which was adding and subtracting rational expressions, because you're really using the same methodology here. So let's start with this linear equation. It's a linear equation because our variable is in our numerator. It's a linear equation with fractions. And what I've shown you this year is to solve this equation, I would just get rid of your fractions by multiplying the whole equation by the least common multiple, which for 3, 2, and 1, the least common multiple is 6. And when we multiply the whole equation by 6, we get 12y over 3 plus 6y over 2 equals 42. Then we just simplify these fractions. They all become whole numbers. We get 4y plus 3y equals 42. 7y equals 42, and we get y equals 6. Some of you like to do another method. Some of you like to rewrite these fractions so that they have the same denominator, and we can do that as well. The denominator needs to be the least common denominator, so that would be 6 for all of these, okay? We multiply the 3 by 2, so we need to multiply the numerator by 2, which is 4y. We multiply the 2 by 3, we multiply the numerator by 3, and then same with your 42, right? And then we can combine like terms over here, 4 over 6y plus 7y over 6 equals 42 over 6. If you want to just write that as, you can just keep that as 7 actually if you want, or you can just leave it as 42 over 6. And we can get rid of the 7 over 6y by multiplying by the reciprocal. And we have y by itself, and we have y equals 42 over 7, which is 6 as well. So two identical methods here. I'm mostly going to use this method because that's how I've taught you this year. When you want to get rid of fractions, multiply the whole equation so it stays balanced. You should always check your work because it's an equation, right? And you saw last section that sometimes when you check your work and plug it back in, you'll get something that's undefined. You'll have 0 in your denominator, especially when we start doing some rational equations, not linear equations. Plug in our 6, we get our 6 here and here, we get 12 over 3 plus 6 over 2 equals 7. 4 plus 3 equals 7, which does check out. So let's keep practicing and get in the habit of plugging back in to check your work. Okay, we're going to do the same thing for number 1. This is a rational equation because we have a variable in our denominator. But let's multiply the whole equation by our least common multiple, which in this case would be x, right? So if we multiply the whole equation by x, we get x squared plus 8x over x equals 6x, okay? This 8x over x we can just eliminate here. So we have x squared plus 8 equals 6x. And then when we set it equal to 0, minus 6x plus 8, hopefully this should remind you of a quadratic equation where you're going to have multiple solutions. So we have minus 4 and minus 2 are factors of 8 that add up to negative 6. So we get positive 4 and positive 2. And then again, you should always go check. Plug in our 4. We get 4 plus 8 over 4, which is 2. So that checks out. And we plug in our 2, we get 2 plus 8 over 2, which is 4, equals 6. That checks out. So 2 solutions here. That's okay to have 2 solutions. Why don't you guys go ahead and try 10 on your own. The least common multiple should be 3x. Give that a shot. So now we just multiply the whole equation by 3x. So now we have 30x over 3 equals 12x over x plus 6x. And then simplify the fractions that you can. So 3 goes into 30 10 times. X and x leaves us with 12. And then we get plus 6x. Move your 6x to the same side. and we get x equals 3. Plug it in to make sure that makes sense. Right, so that would give us 10 over 3 equals 4 over 3 plus, let's rewrite 2 with a denominator of 3, 6 over 3, that does check out. Okay. All right, let's move on to some more complex rational equations. So something like number 3. And if we just took away this part of the equation, you were solving these in 5.3 fine, right? We need to rewrite with the least common denominator. So I'm going to use that second method that I showed you earlier. But our least common denominator here is going to be a product of x minus 8, 2, and sorry, this should also be x minus 8. Apologies. Okay, so our least common multiple is just going to be a product of 2 and x minus 8. And then we need to multiply the numerator by whatever the denominator did not have, right? So for the x minus 8, this first algebraic expression or rational expression, multiply the top and bottom by 2. Now we have 4x minus 10. For here, we would multiply by x minus 8. So we get x squared minus 8x. And then finally, multiply top and bottom by 2, we get 22. Well, you can see that all the denominators are the same. When that's the case, if you wanted to, you could just multiply the whole equation by 2 times x minus 8, and then to each term, it's going to eliminate your denominator. So whenever you have the denominators the same, you could just drop your denominators and set the numerators all equal whatever that last rational expression is. And now we have a quadratic equation we're ready to solve. Combine your like terms. Minus 4x plus 10 equals 22. Bring the 22 over. Negative 12. We're looking for factors of negative 12 that add up to negative 4, so probably negative 6 and positive 2. Let me make sure I subtract those over correctly. 8x squared minus 4x minus, oops, let's fix that, sorry. That was a minus 10 that I wrote as a positive 10. So this should actually be negative 32. So our factors of negative 32 would be negative 8 and positive 4 to get us negative 4 in the middle. So two solutions, 8 and negative 4. Let's check them both. Okay, let's plug it into the original equation. And really, you should see a problem right away. You should see a problem with what happens when you plug in 8 right away in the denominator. 8's going to give you something that's undefined in your denominator, which means this is not a solution. This is not going to work. So we're actually just going to have one solution here, negative 4. Right? And if you want to check that one really quick, you're going to have, let's see, negative 12 over here, minus 4 over 2. So 2 equals 11 over negative 12. So negative 11 over 12. On this side, we had negative 8 minus 5, so negative 13. This gets us positive 13 over 12, 11 over 12, and then you could rewrite this as 24 over 12, and see that's where you get this negative 11 over 12, so it does check out. Okay, always check your work, especially if you have time. All right, why don't you try number 4 on your own? Don't forget to check your work and plug those back in. Go ahead. So your least common denominator should have been 2 times x minus 7. In the numerator, you're going to have 4x minus 18. I had to multiply top and bottom by 2. Over here, we would have x squared minus 7x and then over multiply top and bottom by x minus 7. And then our last fraction would be multiplying top and bottom by 2, so 10. You can drop your denominators, and now in your numerator you have 4x minus 18 plus x squared minus 7x equals 10. Let's get everything on the same side, so we have negative 3x. We have negative 28. So we're looking for factors of negative 28 that add up to negative 3. Let's see, minus 7 and positive 4. Set them both equal to 0, and we get 7 and negative 4. Hopefully you could see this solution, 7 was not going to work. When you plug in 7, 7 minus 7 gets you 0. Negative 4 just happened to be another solution again, would be your answer. These two solutions, the two that did not work when we plugged them back in, those are called extraneous solutions, which are a solution or solutions that's derived from the original equation that is not a solution to the actual equation. And you saw why, because when you plugged it back in, it made the denominator 0, which is making that rational expression undefined, right? So those are called extraneous solutions. Okay, and then I just want to finish with one last word problem. We're using rates. So you're going to be writing a rational equation here yourself. So this says Jason can clean his own house by himself in 4 hours. When Jason and a friend work together, they can clean the house in 1.5 hours. We want to know how long it takes for Jason's friend to clean the house by himself. So the first thing I would do here is write the rate for Jason, the rate for his friend, and then the rate together. And then we'll write that as an equation. So for Jason, he can clean one house in 4 hours. Friend, we're not sure how long it takes him to clean the house. So one house in X hours. Together, they can clean the house in an hour and a half. So our equation would state that Jason's rate plus Jason's friend's rate should mean they can clean the house together in 1.5 hours. Jason plus his friend equals one house cleaned in 1.5 hours. So we're going to do the same thing here. You have a variable in your denominator. You find the least common multiple for 4x and 1.5. So for 4, we have 4, 8, and 12. For 1.5, we have 3, 4.5, 7, 8.5, or sorry, we should be 1.5, 3, we were right with our 7, my apologies. Our 3.5 plus 1.5 is our 5, 6.5. Still don't have a least common multiple yet. 8, we could stop right there. We have a least common multiple of 8, so that goes in for 1.5. So we want to multiply this whole equation by 8x. Or sorry, I think I might need to fix something there. One and a half times our 3. Oops. Sorry, multiples. So 1.5 times our 3 should be our 4.5. sorry about that. Our 1.5 times our 4 should be 6. There we go. Our 1.5. Oh, that's why. So this should be 3. Whoopsies, sorry about that. There's our 7.5. 9, 10.5, and 12. Sorry about that. 8 is not our least common multiple. 12 is our least common multiple. So we want to multiply the whole equation by 12x, just like we were doing up above. So we get 12x over 4 plus 12x over x equals 12x over 1.5. Okay, and you can see here that 1.5 goes in to 12, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. So we could simplify this to 8x. Here, x goes into x. We're left with 12. And then our 4 goes into our 12 3 times. And we're left with 3x. Great, let's finish solving. Subtract 3x to both sides. Divide by our 5. So together, friends can clean the house, and let's write this as not an improper fraction, but 5 goes into 10 twice. We're left with 2/5 hours. If we want to find out our 2/5 of a minute, 2/5 times 60. 5 goes into our 12, and we're left with 24. Remember, we chose 60 because that's 60 minutes per 1 hour. So we're left with 2 hours and 24 minutes. Okay, the 1 or 2 word problems on your homework where you're writing the rate of the work that's being done and then setting up a rational equation like we did here, okay? Remember, just find the least common denominator or least common multiple of the denominators and multiply the whole equation by that number, and then you can simplify. All right, 2 homework assignments over break. You can hopefully get some done in class today, and we will go over your solutions in class.